Order, please. Please notice that this is being recorded by Zoom for the purpose of taking minutes and DCTV. All those able, please rise for the pads and
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Brittany, will you do a roll call, please?
Be my pleasure. We have Dan Esco,
Here.
John Moyle,
Budget.
Attorney Javier Rula,
Here.
Town Manager Thomas Hutchison,
Here.
our Chair Robert Bishop,
Here.
and excused Mark Stroh.
Yeah, Mark Strauss recusing himself because of the way the department had to report to the town manager. Okay, we're going to open up our interview with Matthew. Matthew, can you please tell me how to say your last name so I don't butcher it?
Castriotta.
Okay, welcome.
I've heard it pronounced many ways.
Thank you for putting in for this. We appreciate it. Please bear with us, and we appreciate you doing this. We're going to ask you some questions, and we'll go from there. How would you like to be addressed, formally or informally, or?
Informally is fine.
Okay. Okay. We'll start right off.
Matt's fine.
Okay. All right, Matt, we're going to start right off if you're ready. Okay. Why you? Why would you be a successful town administrator in Dalton?
All right, well, before I answer that question, I want to thank you for the opportunity to interview, and also thank you for the opportunity to interview via Zoom. I too have a town meeting tonight, which I'm hoping to get to, so this makes it possible to get over there and do my civic duty. I bring a lot to the table, which I think would allow me to be successful. First, I'm retiring from teaching in about 3 weeks. So I've got 32 years of teaching. And with that, I've learned to deal with all sorts of people, students, parents, colleagues, administrators. I taught through COVID. My school was one of the only schools that was open during in September of 2020. So we all had to learn new technology in order to teach online because we were in a hybrid mode. So from teaching, I've learned that I always had a lot of patience. I'm one of 7 children. I'm the middle of 7. So I always had a lot of patience anyway. So I learned patience, communication skills, problem-solving skills as a teacher. I've also worked in the corporate world. Prior to being a teacher, I was a financial analyst for Digital Equipment Corporation. So I have a good understanding of how finances work. I also was in corporate sales for a time when digital was going through some troubles in the late 1980s. They gave us they were looking for people to transfer to sales in order to help the company out. So I've been in corporate finance, corporate sales. I've been in education. I've started several small businesses. I've started track meets that where over 2,000 kids from across the state of Massachusetts compete, and I have to manage a staff of about 40 people to make that happen. But more importantly, I'm a selectman like you. For 15 years in Hubbardston, I was a 5-term selectman, and I think that experience, more than anything, has me well prepared to be your town manager. Things were not easy. We were going through some difficult times. You all know how Proposition 2.5 works, so I don't need to tell you that, but I will give you a little history lesson from Hubbardston that in 1980, when Prop 2.5 went into effect, I wasn't living in Hubbardston at the time. I grew up in Barry, the next town over, but I heard this story from the old timers that when Prop 2.5 went into effect, it was based on the baseline was the 1980 budget. So at town meeting in 1980, some of the old timers decided to cut the budget. So that became the base. And then from there, as you know, you can only grow 2.5% unless you override. So through the 80s and the 90s, Hubbardston really struggled financially to deal with the constraints of Prop 2.5. While I served on the board, we implemented new financial management policies. I led the effort to regionalize dispatch, which saved over $120,000 a year. I led the effort to regionalize animal control and assessment services. We did those things prior to the meltdown in 2008, 2009. So when everything really shut down and melted down, Hubbardston was actually in good shape because we had really tightened the belt and regionalized and saved some money. So the reason I stepped off the board, because I enjoyed serving, was I did run unsuccessfully for state representative in 2014. My term was up, and my state rep was running for state senate, so things opened up. I ran unsuccessfully, but no regrets, because I'm a professional student. I love to learn, and as I told people, if I win the race, I take a pay cut, and if I lose the race, I get a pay increase, and I still get to drive my kids to school. So I had thought about being a town manager or town administrator back in the early 2000s after I got my master's in public administration, but my kids were young, and I didn't want to give up the opportunity to teach them and coach them. And now my kids are all out of the house. One's still in college. So the time is right for my wife and I as we look to downsize. And as I exit the classroom, still very positive on education and very thrilled about what I was able to accomplish as a teacher. I'm ready to now transition into a new career.
Thank you. Very thorough. John?
Thank you, Bob. Matt, my name is Janet Boyle. I'm a member of the board.
How you doing?
Again, a two-part question. The first part, are you still a selectman?
No, I was a selectman from 1999 until 2014.
Okay. Oh, okay. Thank you.
So I've been off for over a decade, but I still remember it well.
How could you forget it, huh? Okay. Here's the question, if I can read it. Please tell us about your leadership style and give examples of your approach to working with a team.
Well, I'm a coach as well as a teacher. I've coached over 60 seasons of high school and middle school track, cross country, and soccer. So I'm a natural, I'm a firm believer in teamwork. And I always tell my athletes, we get more done when we work together. I'm a collaborator by nature. I did email Lori a document. I don't know if she shared it with you.
It's in there.
Yeah, we got it in our package.
Yeah, so, if you look at the people that, endorsed me, that I worked with in town, that, they all refer to me as collaborator, a team player, somebody who's able to think outside the box, who maintains my cool and my patience. I look at my role as a leader, as building people up. I don't have a huge ego. And I believe that leaders set a good example. That leaders expect a lot from those they lead, but they also do what they can to help those people they lead to be successful. The way I look at it is, I'm going to be successful if I help everybody else there to be successful, whether it's the board members or the department heads. My job is there to serve you. And I tell my captains, I'm a real stickler about who I appoint as captains to whatever team I've ever coached. I tell my captains, you're a captain, which means you carry the water jug. You don't tell other people to carry the water jug. So that's my philosophy. We are to work together. We need to set a good example.
Thank you. Thank you.
Dan?
Hi, Matt. Dan Esco, member of the Selectboard. Thank you for attending this interview tonight and your interest in the Interim Town Manager position. I'm curious, what is your experience in municipal management? What are your areas of stronger and maybe less strong skills? Please include consideration of human resources and procurement if possible.
Okay. Well, the night that I was elected in 1999, the town shot down a $100,000 override, general override. So that's the environment I walked into. You know, we had a structural budget deficit. And the way it was dealt with every year was, okay, well, when free cash is certified, we're just going to balance the budget doing that. I took the board with no agenda, no axe to grind like other people I know, who just came in to stick it to the police department or stick it to the fire department. I came in as a perpetual student, willing to serve, and I walked into a $100,000 budget deficit. By the time I left the board, we had a $100,000 budget surplus. And we got there by working together, rolling up our sleeves, asking department heads to think outside the box, regionalizing some services in order to find some savings. I had to deal with numerous human resource issues, such as putting a police chief on administrative leave, putting a fire chief on administrative leave. I had to negotiate union contracts. I chaired the board for more than half my years on the board. I had to deal with a tax collector who was embezzling. Fortunately, by the time we got off the board, the town was made whole and we got all of our money back. So there was no shortage of personnel issues that I had to deal with. I credit, my success in the selectmen as my ability to hire good people. When we had to put our police chief on administrative leave, he eventually left and we hired a new guy and he lasted almost 20 years. When we put our fire chief on administrative leave and he eventually left, we hired a fire chief who's still there. I hired 4 town administrators. Each one increasingly gained more responsibility. When I was first elected, we had an executive secretary, and within about 5 years, we changed her title to administrative assistant because she took on more roles. And then after that, we had, Trudy, Debbie, we had 4 total. By the time I left, we had a strong town administrator. I led the effort to get a new town charter for the town of Hubbardston that went into effect back over a decade ago. That strengthened the town administrator's position, which is something that I really fought for, because when I got on the board, as I tell people, I was cleaning up messes from the 80s and 90s. Developers who would come in and run roughshod over the town. The developer that pulled all his bond money out and left roads not up to snuff, and the residents wanted them accepted as public ways. So myself, my colleagues, we had some messes to clean up. And my philosophy, personally, as an educator, as a father, as a selectman, is don't leave messes for other people to clean up. And I'm really proud to say, if you came to Hubbardston today, and you looked at how things are going, our renovated Main Street, our new municipal building, those things happen because government is working well. And as you know, when government's working well, you can get a lot done. And when it's dysfunctional and when people don't trust you, then you can't get anything accomplished. So I believe in building consensus with employees. I believe in building consensus with taxpayers. We did unsuccessfully. We tried to get a general override passed in 2008, and Hubbardston is very, very fiscally conservative, but we came 30 votes shy of doing that. But we told people, I went to town meeting, I presented 2 budgets. I said to the town meeting, I said, listen, we can no longer balance our budget with free cash. Going forward, we need to use free cash for stabilization funds. We can't just use that to balance the general operating budget. So I went to town meeting in 2008, and I convinced my colleagues on the board, and the town administrator and the finance committee, we're going to go to town meeting with 2 budgets. One is the budget we can afford, The other one is the budget that requires an override to pass the following week. And I told the voters, here's how we're gonna do it this year. Because typically what happens is, we have to come back in the fall and balance the budget. I said, this year, you're gonna vote on 2 budgets. And if you like the bigger budget that preserves all these services, then you're gonna have to vote for the override. And if the override fails, we're gonna have a balanced budget. So you pick. And I was undecided that wanted the override to pass. It didn't, but the good news was we had a balanced budget. And we finally kind of streamlined things and tightened the belts, and we set a new tone at Hubbardston with new financial management policies. And like I said, the success of government in the last 10 years is because I think we got people that trust us. Our strong town administrator right now I was just watching him online prepping the town for town meetings, doing a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Tony?
Okay, welcome. Hello, ma'am. My name is Tony Gagliolo. I'm new to the select board, to say the least. Could you please talk about your level of comfort and experience with resolving conflicts and disputes? And please include an example of a difficult leadership situation, given polarized parties, and how you address that.
Great question. Well, like I said, I did have to deal with my fair share of personnel issues. I had to hold hearings to deal with discipline issues. I would say one of the most challenging ones I ever had to deal with was we had some issues within our police department, and not to knock the men in blue, they do a great job, but we just had some personnel issues, and I was the chair of the board. This is probably about 5 years into my 15 years, and I had the chair at a hearing, and I had 2 grown men, wearing the police uniform who are telling 2 different stories. And I remember thinking to myself, you both swore to uphold the Constitution, but you're telling opposite stories, so somebody's not telling the truth here. And I remember just thinking, this is a really hard job. But my job is to not back away from tough decisions, and I never backed away from a tough vote. I was never afraid to tell people how I felt and what my opinions were, and let them know. So I'd say that was the most challenging one, just because I was shocked that 2 grown people in uniform could be telling 2 completely different stories, and both of us sworn to uphold the Constitution. We had some other smaller issues, like the person that wanted to bring their dog to work, and we had to tell her, sorry, the dog's gonna have to stay home. She wasn't happy about hearing that. So that's at the selectmen. As a teacher, I'm dealing with issues, lots of times dealing with conflict. I think because I'm one of 7, I have a lot of patience. That's probably helped me over the years, because I can stay calm, and it allows me to I have a clear mind. And with a clear mind, I think I end up making wise choices. I try not to be a rash thinker. I try to be logical and put a lot of thought into it.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, man. This is constituting public service. Dalton has a culture of commitment to high-quality constituting public services. Please discuss your past or current activities that focus on meeting the needs of constituents.
Constituents.
Yes. Okay.
Well, as a selectman, my number one job was to look out for the town. Not look out for my own personal self-interest, but to look out for the town. And like I've said, I inherited some messes, helped clean them up, and I didn't leave any messes for other people to clean up. So, my number one job was to serve the constituents and give them, my best judgment, and bring, my life experience and wisdom to every decision I had to make. I'm a son of a school teacher and a social worker. And, community service was always just ingrained in myself and my siblings. When I first graduated from college, I helped to start a pilot program for curbside recycling in the town of Barry. I started affordable soccer clinics for, kids who, couldn't afford to go off to these big, $300 or $400, $500 camps. I created affordable soccer camps. I've started track meets, cross-country meets that are open to the entire state. So community has always been a big part of me, serving other people. So I'm not sure if that answered the question, but if you have a follow-up, I'm happy to take it.
No, that's good. Thank you. John, number six.
Oh, sorry. Number 6, yeah.
Yeah.
Matt, as Dalton Town Manager, you have relationships with many people and groups, including employees and citizens, elected and appointed officials, and groups like the Selectboard and Finance Committee, among others. Tell us about how you build and maintain professional relationships.
Well, I think those relationships are based on trust. First of all, people have to trust you, and so you have to earn their trust. And I think if I were fortunate enough to get the job, the first thing I would do is I would sit down with folks and tell them I want to find out, how you're doing your job. I want to find out what I can do to help you do your job. I would set the expectation that we're all here to serve the town. We're all here to serve the taxpayers, and the taxpayers expect us to work well together. I mean, that's kind of how I roll as a selectman. I mean, they hired us to do a job. They expect us to do it. And if we don't, then they're going to tell us, at the ballot box. And fortunately for me, I won 5 times. I was elected and reelected. I think people trusted me, and they liked the direction that I was leading the town. So you have to build trust. And I'm going to be the newbie if I'm fortunate to get the job. And all I can show people right away is who I am and what I've done. And hopefully that's enough to sort of open the door and establish a good rapport right off the bat. As far as serving, dealing with residents, you have to be patient. You need to learn to take phone calls. You need to be able to work with people face to face. I've been in customer service. I was a paper boy at the age of 10. I worked customer service in college. I've been in sales. I've been my own boss as a business person, so I know how important it is to get your customers to trust you. So yeah, once you have trust, then it's easier to lead the group of people. Until they trust you, not so much.
Thanks, Matt.
Matt, can you please tell us about your direct experience with managing capital improvement projects or other municipal and infrastructure projects?
Well, I see you trying to build a municipal building. I was actually looking at your warrant, looking at the various things. And by the way, you guys get a nice stipend over there, the Selectboard. We got paid $900, and then they thought that was too much money, so they cut it back to 0. But
All volunteer?
all volunteer. Yeah. And once that was part of getting a strong town charter. I think that was something I think that we as a board just decided, if we're going to be asking that we have a higher price paid town manager who's going to have more authority, then we'll have to sacrifice our stipend. But anyway, I did see on your warrant that you're looking to build a new municipal building. On my watch, we didn't have any big capital projects because we didn't have the money for it. You know, we did manage to borrow $2 million, I think it was in 2013, to match some Chapter 90 money to reconstruct, I believe it was 5 or 6 miles of roads. You know, on my watch, we established a capital plan. We didn't have a capital plan before that. So now we have a plan which we could show the residents and the voters, you know, next year we're replacing the fire truck. In 2 years we're replacing the sand. In 3 years out we're going to be looking for money to put make the library handicapped accessible. So, you know, I was instrumental in getting people to think about having a capital budget. But in terms of, honestly, there were no buildings built on my watch. I saw our schools be renovated, all 5 of our elementary schools and our middle high school. So I saw that happen, but I wasn't directly responsible. I can tell you in the corporate world, I did investment analysis for a facilities project where I worked in Westminster, Massachusetts. I'm a finance minor from Babson College, so I've always been good with numbers. Yeah.
Thank you.
Bet.
Okay, it's 20 next.
You good?
I
Yeah.
have a question.
Yeah.
Matt, supervisory experience, what's your experience as a supervisor? I think that's to some degree. And basically, how many people have you supervised in various capacities?
Well, let's see. In college, I started my own painting business. So I was painting, I had 4 crews going. I took out a loan, bought a van, bought some ladders, and painted many houses in Natick and Framingham in the summers of '87 and '88. As a business person, I managed painting crews. As a selectman, I was managing, people who I hired, department heads, employees, in the office. As a teacher, I'm managing a class of sometimes 35 kids. That's no easy task, but it's a task that I've enjoyed doing. I tell my students, most people don't take it personal, but most people would not want to spend their day with middle school students. But that's what I chose to do. So managing a class of 25 to 35 students, that's no easy task, but it's what I enjoy and I love. I've started several big track and cross country events. This weekend down at Bridgewater State, over 2,500 athletes are coming from across the state to compete at the 13th Massachusetts Middle School State Track and Field Meet. That was my brainchild, which I created. I'm going to be donating it actually after this year to the Massachusetts State Track Coaches Association. But that meet I do the entire thing by myself. I have a staff of, 25, 30 people that all come together. I have to rent the place. I have to hire a timing company. I've got to have officials for all the field events, track events. So I'm a one-man show, pulling that off every year. And there's many, many, many moving parts to that. I have to insure the meet. I have to sanction the meet through USA Track and Field. So it's a lot to supervise, but it's a labor of love. So I don't complain about it because I enjoy doing it. I enjoy creating things, building things. But like I said, this is the 13th year of the meet, and I'm donating it to the Massachusetts State Track Coaches Association. I will tell you, getting back to the capital question, the project question. So I serve on 3 committees for the Massachusetts State Track Coaches Association. I'm the executive committee. I'm on the finance committee, and I was asked to chair the land acquisition subcommittee. So for the last year, I've been chairing a committee looking at building a indoor track in Worcester, Massachusetts. Because if you know anything about track and field or indoor track and field, then all the nice indoor tracks are down in Boston. So kids from across the state have to travel across the state. So I'm chairing a subcommittee and working with a developer and his consultant trying to build a 200-meter indoor track in an old industrial area in Worcester. And if that is successful, that would transform indoor track because kids in western and central Massachusetts won't be driving all the way to Roxbury to the Red Lewis track on 2 or 3 hour bus rides every weekend. So, but I was asked to chair the committee because people know that I'm a high energy person and I'm good at building a team. And there's some people that are encouraging me to throw my hat to ring to be president of the Mass State Track Coaches Association, which is just like it's a part-time thing. But people recognize my enthusiasm and my ability to be professional, level-headed, and basically get the job done.
Thank you.
Okay. John, just a couple quick questions for you.
Couple of quick questions, Matt. How big in population is Hubbardston? Is the town of Hubbardston adopted the Town Manager Act?
I didn't get the second part.
Hubbardston adopted the Town Manager Act. But the legislature has the Town Manager Act, and Dalton has accepted it. That's why we're under the. That's you.
Yeah, so all right, so our population is 4,600
Yeah.
roughly, and when we wrote a new town charter that got approved by the state government back in 2011, and that created a strong town administrator, essentially a town manager. We call him a town administrator, but essentially the town manager.
Okay, that was my question. So the town of Hubbardston does not act and operate under the Town Manager Act. You created a charter, which is in a sense takes the place of the Town Manager Act. I understand. And one follow-up question. If offered the job today, when would you be able to start and what would be your expectations towards when you would be leaving the job?
When I would be leaving my teaching job?
No, leaving the interim town manager job.
Oh, okay. Thanks, John. So obviously I have a school year to finish up.
Yep.
And that brings me to June 23rd. And then my daughter's coming in from Pittsburgh for a week with her fiance. So the ideal start date would be Monday, July 7th. That would be the ideal start date. If you needed me to start earlier, I would. If you needed me to come in part-time, I'd be happy to do that. But certainly, I got to finish up the school year.
Yeah.
I'd love to have a week off and spend some time with my daughter or fiance, and then be ready to go. And then, you guys have a tough decision to make to hire an interim. I think that what would probably work out best for everybody, and I certainly, I'd be open to, do it for a year, and then, if you guys like what I'm doing, then I would love to, ink a 3-year contract after that. Financially, I'll tell you right now, financially, you'd be better off hiring me as an interim, because of mass pension laws, I'm limited as to how much I can make as a retired teacher. So you guys would probably be saving about $50,000, and I don't need health insurance because I have health insurance as a retired teacher. So you might be saving $50,000 to $70,000. But you know what? I'd be willing to do the job because I've been wanting to be a town manager and town administrator for a long time. And like I said, it's good timing because I'm retiring and my kids are, moving out and we're empty nesters. So I'd be thrilled to have the job. I'm ready to go if you want to offer it to me.
Okay, man.
We'll be making that decision later on. One final question. The town of Dalton, the last annual town meeting, rescinded the requirement for a town manager to live in the town. So now you can live anywhere. And I'm guessing that because it's a temporary job, you will be commuting.
Yeah, but I'm gonna live out there at least probably 2 nights a week. I'm planning on. I've already started looking for rooms to rent or cheap hotel rooms because it's about an hour and 20 minutes, I think, an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And I did see that your Monday through Thursday operation. If I read that correctly on your website. So yeah, I would certainly, especially the nights that there's meetings, I would just stay over in Dalton or Pittsfield, someplace close.
Good. Thank you, Matt. You've been very, very, very detailed and thorough and answered every question. Okay. We've very good on preparation. Okay. Thank you.
Matt, do you have any questions for us?
Well, so if my ears heard correctly, you're gonna make a decision tonight.
Correct.
So is that what I know tonight or what I know tomorrow morning?
Probably tonight.
Okay. Well, that's exciting news. However it shakes out, it'll be good to know one way or the other. So it is correct. It is a Monday to Thursday operation.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And would I get some training like through the MMA, either online or in person to help me get up the learning curve?
Yes, there's all kinds of training available through MMA. Yeah.
Okay. I actually took an online grant writing class back about 2 months ago just to get more familiar with what would be expected in that particular role as a town manager or town administrator. But I'm certainly I'm a quick study, but and I know going into it the learning curve, it's going to be steep at first, but I'm a hard worker, an early riser, and certainly would welcome any opportunities to get some training, because my job is to make you guys look good and to help the employees to do their job better. So the more training I get, the better off I'm going to be at that.
All right. Thank you.
I just have one question, man. When's your final day of school?
Monday, June 23rd.
And then you're looking to perform, assuming all goes well, or take on after 4th of July?
Yeah. Yeah. I think July 7th is a Monday.
Yes, it is.
So I'd be good to go then. But like I said, if you needed me to come in, part-time or wanted me to attend a meeting or two before that, again, whatever I can do to get up that learning curve quicker, that's better for me and it's certainly better for you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Well, I thank you.
Great. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. So I can now head over to my town meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks. Take care. Good night.
Okay. So, we'll go over this. Well,
Hello? There are 5 people on this board.
Yeah, we'll be right here.
Oh, good. I get to sit down. Here, just a moment.
Okay. I will take. Hey,
Hello,
Hi, Dan.
Dan.
I've not met you.
Nice to meet you,
Pleasure
Terry.
meeting you.
Gary, good to see you.
Good to see you, my man. I have updated my resume with only one thing. Actually, I added the fact that I am treasurer of the Dalton Meadows Condo Association since I retired. So, you don't go where they go. Exactly. Where we at? Blank. like just leave here.
Understood.
Same as me. There's not really no.
Very good, thank you. Appreciate that.
Right, well, John, has one of them.
Got it.
Updated last week.
Well, look, everybody's good.
For the health and salt and metals condos.
All right.
Jerry,
Tony,
the Dalton Meadows condos,
Yes,
is that on Depot Street?
yes. Yeah, actually,
It's quite
it
similar.
is like a large condominium,
But it's
4 units. But basically, yeah, I showed up and they saw, hey,
Yeah.
they saw like, uh-oh, we gotta get him
Yeah.
on the door.
Terry, you want to be called Terry or Henry? We all know you as Terry.
Yes,
That says good. You,
Terry it is.
okay, are you all set?
Yeah. I sure am.
Okay. Welcome. You know everybody here,
Yeah, Dan, I just met,
okay?
and I was hoping to meet Mark.
Yeah, Mark recused himself because his wife's a police chief and said
Right.
he would report to you, so he recused
Oh,
himself.
okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, it's funny, as you know, I left the board finance committee in 2018 when I retired from the Department of Revenue, and we started taking up 6 months of our residency in Boston. So, unfortunately, some of the new guys here, I just don't know.
All right, here we go. Terry, why you? Why would you be successful as a town administrator of Dalton?
Well, I'd start off by saying, first of all, I'm a native of Dalton. I was born and raised here, and lived, for those that don't know, I grew up in the Red House right across from Town Hall. And it's funny, my father was a person who served also in Town Hall on the Finance Committee, and I've got some great pictures back in the early 60s when it was like the Cranes on the Finance Committee and a few other people, all men that were about, 60 or 70 in, white shirts and black ties and such. But, so I'm a full-time native other than when I went to college and for a couple of years before I returned and we bought a house in 1982 on East Street. And as you know, I joined the Finance Committee in the late 80s, and that's all documented there. And I'm very familiar with the town. I've worked with, definitely John. Good God, John, we go back a long ways.
Wow.
And I'm familiar with, even today, Sandy, I speak with Sandy still on a regular basis. Dawn, I was on the original OPED, the committee that put together the OPED. We kind of figured out who we were going to go with. And so that was actually after I retired. When Tom Scanlon, our auditor, basically said, you guys need to start realizing that this unfunded liability is a black mark on your audit report. And you need to start putting money aside. And so I worked, with Dawn and Mr. Lombardi, Sue Carroll's husband, and Sue Beaton and Ken Walto. And Dawn was on that particular board. And so that was a good thing. So I'm familiar, having been chair of the Finance Committee for 28 years with, virtually all the departments in town. I know it's said when I was chairman, the best way to find out what's going on in town, if you're really interested, is get on the Finance Committee and see where the money goes. That will tell you what goes on in town. So, long and short, I feel I could step in this kind of situation, where, it's kind of a short timeline to cross over and have some familiarity with the operations of this town hall and the staff in the town departments.
Okay. Got it?
Yeah, good. Up to you.
I know.
$30
Too. It's hard to read. What is your experience in municipal management?
And that's all.
I'm sorry, leadership. Please tell us about your leadership style and give examples of your approach working with a team.
Well, I would say my leadership style is to try to be inclusive. I believe that you need to respect your staff because they're the people with the knowledge. And what you're trying to do is pull all the pieces together and more or less create a symphony orchestra, if you will, of the different parts of town government. And, the many years that I led the finance committee, that was a tough job, and I'll tell you why. You know that 50% of our budget pretty much goes to the Central Berkshire Regional School District. And so you have, you kind of are trying to balance those that are interested in funding town services and those folks that are primarily interested in seeing the schools funded properly. And one thing I believe strongly in was that both these different parts of town hall and school were both equally important. And I didn't want to show any short shrift to either side or feel like I was, beholden to one side or another. So in this case, my leadership style was to try to walk a line which, gave respect to both sides of this equation because they're both important. And, it's been said many times, those people that, say, hey, the schools, we need to cut them and this, that, and the other thing, you have to remember that a good school system is what attracts people to come and reside in your town. And so I always thought it was important to have, have the school system be almost, I'm going to say, a priority, and make sure that it's well financed. But at the same time, we ran into real problems back in the 90s when Tony was on the committee with me. The school budget went up to an extent that was kind of unfundable in the sense that we couldn't continue with the funding that we had on the town side. So we had to make some pretty tough decisions. We were looking at cuts to police and highway, and that's when, we went to actually 4-day town hall as one of the things we had to do. But the object was not to just backfill more appropriations that would then drive the tax bill up and perhaps even call for an override, which, a Prop 2 override that's for just operating purposes, it's a non-starter, generally speaking. So, that was an occasion where, I felt that my leadership in the committee at that time allowed us to reach a consensus that was not what everyone wanted, but one that would be able to fund the town and get the budget approved and allow the tax rate to be set, because you can't move forward without a balanced budget. And so that's how I would respond to that query.
Thank you, Terry. Yeah?
Terry, can you tell us a little bit about your experience in municipal management and specifically areas of strength or weakness, as well as consideration for the human resources and procurement side of the job?
Okay. So as noted, I had two separate careers. The first part was locally here at Lloyd Jones. And then subsequently, I was very fortunate, and I think it was actually my time on the finance committee that was kind of allowed me to really put forward our best foot and obtain this job with the Department of Revenue Division of Local Services, which oversees municipal finance, as you know, in all 351 cities and towns in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And in this job, I was generally assigned, as were the other, we were called field account representatives. We were assigned each about 35 cities and towns and the associated regional school districts that might be in those 35 towns, as well as any special purpose districts such as fire, water, etc. And you would basically be responsible to oversee these particular governmental entities and be sure that they, most obviously, weren't somehow, cooking the books, quote, or, generally speaking, what you were doing was assisting the staff in the financial areas, which of course would be the accountant, treasurer, collector, the assessors to some extent. Of course, I didn't get involved in any of the assessing directly, but in terms of, preparing the tax recap sheet, that was, an integral part of what we did. We essentially certified the tax rates for every city and town that we were responsible for. And we would also calculate and certify the free cash for those entities. And with the regional school districts, of course, it's called excess and deficiency, which is called E&D for short. And so I would go literally out in the field, probably, let's say about a quarter of the time, you'd go to your various cities and towns or school districts or water districts, whatever, and check in, sit down with the officials, which ran the gamut, would also include the town administrator or town manager or mayor, whatever the top guy was, and all the associated, again, finance positions below that. And so there were, believe me, we are very fortunate here in Dalton that the town is run in a very, strong position financially. We got a strong staff, thank the Lord, because over the years, I was, party to having to go to some municipalities or districts that were in pretty bad shape. And in some cases, DOR actually had to step in and basically kind of run the operations of said community for a while by virtue of having a board that was a combined local officials and DOR officials, but that was always weighted for the state. So you'd always get the vote to do whatever by virtue of the state vote. So, I mean, it was a great job. I loved that job because I got to know all these different positions. And you'll see there in my education portion at the bottom of the resume, I was lucky to be able to attend many courses that were put on by the associations whether it be collector treasurer or the Mass Accountants Association. And, you know, that in itself was, you know, helpful. The greatest thing was they allowed me to continue as finance committee chair for Dalton. I could have no official role whatsoever in anything to do with either Dalton, the Dalton Fire and Water District, or Central Berkshire. And so, you know, my towns that I was assigned and such were typically in Franklin, Hampshire County, bleeding into Worcester County down there. But the greatest thing was being able to kind of be at work during the day down in Springfield or whatever, and working on municipal finance issues, and then come up here and have a finance committee meeting where, you know, I could actually bring in all this kind of knowledge, and at the same time bring the knowledge that I was having, you know, kind of right on the floor of the battle, so to speak, in a city and town, and bring that to my experience as a field rep at the DOR. Now, you mentioned a couple of specific areas there, and I must say that, yeah, I can't say that I have had any real experience in HR, or other than, yeah, I know, of course, mass procurement law. I know the basics, but I can't say I've been out there making, getting quotes and signing contracts and the like. But yeah, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility there. It's based on my other experience. So does that help you, Dan?
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay. Conflict resolution. Please talk about your level of conflict experience with resolving conflicts and disputes. Include an example of a difficult leadership situation with polarized parties and how you address it.
Well, I can think of a situation that was, I won't mention the town because I mean, it could be embarrassing for the officials there. There was a time before, you know, the systems have really improved at my former place of employment as far as computerization of the various documents, like the tax recap is specifically what I want to talk about here. There used to be a time where certain little towns would call upon me, because I represented that town, would you please come out, because we've had all our town meetings and, you know, everything's ready, but, you know, we really need help with the recap. So I would go out, and I went out on this one occasion, and so I said, okay, can I have all your town meeting minutes from the ATM and SCMs, et cetera? And I'm gonna start setting up your page 4, which page 4 of the recap is where you put all your votes from town meeting, financial votes. And so I put all that in, and then I continued on with the other documents that you do, the local estimated receipts, which of course are an offset so that you can, yeah, lower the taxes. You're looking for other revenues. And to make a long story short, I got to the end game, and, you know, there was kind of two groups of people that were in town hall that day. And I had to tell them that they were not going to be getting a tax rate that day, or probably anytime soon, because they had raised and appropriated a large sum of money for I think it was a large truck, highway truck, along with the rest of the budgetary items. But this particular truck wasn't a debt. They weren't taking out debt service. They were just going to buy it outright, and it was a substantial amount of money. And bottom line was they were in excess of their Prop 2.5 levy limit. So I gave the people the news and told them that this was going to necessitate them to schedule another town meeting and probably change the vote to a debt service to take out some debt, authorized debt. And I can tell you, there were some very unhappy people, and there were some people that seemed to understand it right away. And so, yeah, I was really in an uncomfortable position because you could tell they thought this thing was totally in the bag. And here I was coming from Springfield, yeah, quote unquote, that's and giving them some very bad news. And so they said, would you please go back and speak to your supervisors and such. And so, yeah, in the end, I had to get back to them and pretty much make clear that they had no other choice. And, there were some people that they just couldn't believe it. But, that was an example of a situation that came up. Now, we had another situation in Dalton that I remember. John, you may recognize this yourself. I kind of laugh. We had a couple of budgets, and this was back in the 90s, where the select board had their notions about what should be the funding level. And Larry Jingles in particular was, a good, honest guy, but he had his brother said it was going to be this. And Tony was, I think, on the board at the time. And we had a meeting where there was basically a debate over who was going to make an amendment on the floor of our annual town meeting about these couple of budgets. I think one was the library. They were rather innocuous budgets, generally speaking, and they weren't a lot of money, but it was got into kind of a discussion of really who had the authority over the budgetary manner. And, as chairman, I had to come down and say, it was kind of uncomfortable because the select board, you guys are you're the board of directors of the town. And here's a fella that's on a voluntary committee, but the way the things are set up, the finance committee, it's essentially their budget at town meeting. And so there was a debate over who was going to stand up and amend the budget. And, Mr. Dingers was hoping that I would get up and ask to amend the budget of his budget. And I said, no, it's in fact the finance committee budget. And you're very welcome to get up at town meeting and put forth an amendment. And in the end, that's what happened. And the vote was for the finance committee budget. So that was an interesting debate. And I, in the end, we all shook hands and went on our merry way. And actually, Larry Jingles is one great select board member. Only the period service that he was there. And of course, it's like Jean. Yeah, like Jean she's still very active, and she's a wonderful person. So we're very lucky to have the Jingleses in town. But it was a very memorable time.
I'll attest to that. I think I spoke to the select board about that several weeks ago. That was prior to us adopting the Town Manager Act.
Yes. That was when there was a three-man select board, and it's on the resume, but I was a member of the Town Government Study Committee, which actually brought in the town manager form of government and expanded the board to 5 members. Really because we wanted to be sure that you couldn't just have a couple of people that had it in for a particular town manager and put open the door. We felt that a 5-member board would make that a little harder, which should be hard to, fire the town manager, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
Yep.
That didn't happen going to the 5-member board until several years after we went to town manager, seven town manager.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. It seemed like it was, they went part and parcel, no? Close.
Yeah, but it was 3 or 4 years down the road we went to 5-member board.
I mean, I don't have it, the figure, so I don't know, what else? But it eventually became a 5-member board. And, it's hard to imagine now, can you imagine, not having a town administrator or manager in these particular days, the complexity and all, and only having 3 select board members? Just think of you guys, if it was you and 2 others, and you're really having to run the show, like, day in and day out. Thank God that, have full-time administrator.
Tony.
Number 5, constituent public service tier. Dalton has a culture of commitment to high-quality constituent and public services. Discuss your past or current activities that focus on meeting the needs of constituents.
I've always felt government, and particularly local government, it's interesting when you think about the different levels of government, local, state, federal. Local government is the closest to the actual constituents, the closest people. When you pay your tax dollars to certainly the Fed and even the state, it's like, God knows where it's going, whether you support that or not is up in the air. But when you're in a local town, particularly with an open town meeting, you know that every town voter is actually the group that decides what the budget's going to be. The finance committee, certainly, I never wanted to see anything but our budget pass without amendment. And 99.9% of the time over my 28 years, it would be considered unsuccessful if we didn't leave that night with the entire thing as proposed. But that was because we spent a lot of time trying to understand what the needs were of the various people who lived in town. And I've always thought, I like talking to voters and such. I've been involved in campaigns. I was very close to Jane Swift when she was running for state senator and did a lot of legwork. Of course, that's a political campaign, but you're listening to the constituents and trying to align those desires with the candidates' proposals. And so, I was happy to meet any constituent. I'd be up at the town landfill or, the transfer station and, chatting with voters and asking, what their problems were and what their desires were. And so to me, it's very important constituent service. And, if I was, say, in this position and a constituent calls in a voter or a town, a town resident and has a problem, I'm prepared to be there immediately. and, work the best I can to remedy the situation. That's really all I can say.
Yeah, number 6.
We're sitting.
Number 6.
Yeah, if the Dalton Town Manager, you would have relationships with many people and groups, including employees, citizens, elected and appointed officials, and groups like the Selectboard and Finance Committee, among others. Tell us how you would build and maintain professional relationships.
Well, I would picture myself, if I was to obtain this position, starting right off by going around to every department and visiting with each of the department heads. I spent the last week completely reading the annual report and each report in here, and learned quite a bit. Yeah, truth be told, it is true. I'm only in Dalton, generally speaking, now half of the year, and I'm a resident and a voter of Dalton, and we talked about changing our residency. Probably could save some money on the taxes down there, but we just haven't been able to pull the trigger. And so the fact of the matter is that our hearts are in Dalton, and I've always just felt that if I was in this position, I just have this feeling because of my prior experience in Dalton that I kind of know. Not only, again, some of the players, but I know the departments, and I'm familiar with, what things need to be done, and I'm interested in hearing again from the various department heads, because they are the experts, I believe. I mean, that's the point, I think. And, if there's disagreements with that, we can discuss it, but I would start off by visiting every department in the town, highway, go down to the police station, library, of course, all the offices right there in town hall, goes without saying, and make sure that they know that there's an open door to come and discuss any concerns they might have with me. And of course, I report to you guys. So anything I learn that's of substance and consequence that you guys would actually act on, that means that I would bring that to you. I'm your agent, essentially, in this position. And obviously, I'm going to sit down with you guys and hear what your concerns are and what areas I should be focused on the most. Of course, I know we're wrapping up the fiscal year right now. Got a town meeting next week, and then closing up all the books and everything, and immediately starting the new year. But who knows, there might be some of those end of year special transfers that the finance committee can do. Fortunately, you can skip town meeting on some of these if they fit in the qualifications as such. So go all the way to July 15th with the finance committee making reserve fund transfers. So obviously, we want to be sure all that's taken care of so that the budget has no deficit at year end, and hopefully free cash will be strong again. I noticed it was about $2.5 million. I have the budget here in the year, of course, and I've gone over it in depth. This was the spreadsheet that I kind of got going way back in the 90s. And I'm pleased to see that the town has kept using it. And the other thing is, believe it or not, in my position at Department of Revenue, I took this spreadsheet to probably about half a dozen towns and got them interested in setting up their budgetary spreadsheet in this manner, because it's a great what if, you can just plug in a different number and then look at the last page, see what it did to the tax rate and your excess levy capacity and such. So I see what happened this year. Essentially you had four budgets that unfortunately are the entire differential, and of course it's police, sewer, which is a sewer user fee, VOCAD, and what was the other one there? Oh, the health insurance. Those four budgets, if you just total them up, that's the entire differential from a year ago. It's unfortunate, but some of those things unfortunately are out of your control. The health insurance is, any insurance is, it's sad. You just have to hear the bad news, and what are you gonna do? I don't know.
Okay, Dan?
Terry, can you please tell us about your direct experience with managing capital improvement projects and other major municipal or infrastructure projects? Your involvement in them.
Well, I first of all, and I'll first speak about Dalton. Dalton, I worked with Ken Walto quite closely, and he always had developed a 5-year plan, and then we would discuss exactly how we would implement each year of the plan, of course, the current year being the most critical, and decide exactly how we would go about getting authorization for debt service on those capital projects. And then, once the approvals had been made at town meeting to authorize the debt service, we'd go forward with, attempting to actually get the proper quotes for the job intended for the piece of machinery, and go forward with that and get with bond counsel and such to set up the various loan documents that you would go through. And then accounting wise, if this piece of the machinery, it's just a case of, when you get it, the capital account's closed, but you have the debt service. But if you had an ongoing project where you might have, costs rolling over a number of years, you have to be careful on when you change from temporary debt to permanent debt. So, I was working in an oblique fashion there, but then the same thing, happened in my experience with the 19 years at the Department of Revenue, where, again, my various towns would call upon us, because we were basically there to serve the towns that we were assigned to, understanding that the state kind of lords over these towns. Each city and town essentially is an offshoot of the state government, which is why the state is always kind of overseeing the work of the various cities and towns to be sure that it complies with all the state financial statutes and stuff. But there'd be times where I'd be called upon to come out and kind of counsel them on what the best way to approach big capital projects might entail. And again, obliquely, we met with, and I can remember times where we actually went to Boston and met with, bond councils right in the middle of the city, going up these, 15, 20 floors. And, wow, some of this stuff was just wild, and learn about bond premiums and, all these kind of things that you have to take into account. And one thing with the Prop 2.5, I'll just mention as an aside here, when you get a debt exclusion for a big capital project, building or something, that, when you get that, and that question, as it's put to the voters, suggests a certain level of annual debt service. And if suddenly something happens where you have to like maybe rebid a portion of the project or something, and it turns out the cost becomes greater than was envisioned when you had the original, first of all, debt that was authorized, and then the debt exclusion vote at town, an actual ballot vote. And if it turns out that debt is higher, you can't just say, oh, well, everyone approved the debt exclusion, it's fine. No, you actually have to go back. If you want to exclude that additional portion, you have to go back to the voters and ask them to approve that. Which, I think some people forget about. But, so I, again, my experience has been, I call it bleak, but I think enough that I can, carry my own if necessary.
Thank you, Terry.
Number 8, final one for me, Tara, for us. Supervisory experience. What is your experience as a supervisor? How many people have you supervised?
Let's say I haven't really had a lot of direct supervision over the years. I mean, obviously being chairman of the finance committee is something, but it's not like you're supervising your members. Truthfully, every position I've had has been one where I'm not supervising anybody in particular other than myself. But again, over the years, 44 years of direct work experience total, and life experience, my feeling is that that's not an issue.
Thank you.
Okay. Do you have any questions for us?
I'm just gonna ask you about, Eric, if the board so chooses to offer you this position, when would you be able to start? And how long would you be able to stay?
Okay, I'm glad you asked that. Basically, I could start very soon. Can't start tomorrow, actually. I have a commitment.
Well, that's it.
But, okay, well, I understand what involved. But I'm basically understanding that, we're looking at a rather quick transition here, and I want to absorb as much as I can from Tom. So, I mean, basically, just generally speaking, this week, I can start, certainly beginning of next week, absolutely. As far as my own schedule, as you know, we do own a house in Austin, and we own a condominium here. My plan right now, again, this plan was set up well before this came into the picture. I have booked flights to Austin October 7th and return to Dalton November 5th, and will be in Dalton until January 5th after that. So essentially, I'm kind of away 1 month in the next 7 months. I would say that it's possible I could amend that October trip, if need be. Or, yeah, maybe there's a chance to work remote, but, in any event, I would do what is necessary. I am admitting, I noticed that the job posting mentioned that, this interim position could also transfer into permanency. I'm truthfully, I'm not interested in a permanent position. I've, been retired now for a few years. And, I'm no longer that young. But
I think the board-
good condition for
I think the
pay.
board is hopeful of having this up before October 7th.
Yeah, I got the impression,
But-
but let's talk turkey on that. It's a tough environment out there. You just need to look at both Great Barrington and Adams and see that, they're on interim town managers, administrators. And I think, they're, so far from what I've seen, they haven't quite nailed down their permanent replacements as of yet. And you definitely want a quality guy or woman to, run the town. So,
We got a
I know
great
you've got a
committee.
good search committee. You got a great search committee. I know some of the members.
Yeah.
And,
But we're confident.
okay,
Well,
well,
that's got-
it's good to have confidence, I would say that. But so that is, that's my plan, that I'm definitely totally here till October 7th. And then, again, would be returning in early November, or could amend that if need be. But by January, to be honest with you, we're done.
All right.
How do you like that?
I'd like Austin. It's hot, but that's
What about
why
the rest of
I'm
it?
not there now.
The rest of us get kind of a bad rap up here. You will.
Well, Austin is just such a great city. I mean, there's so much going on. It's just growing like leaps and bounds. You can't even believe the amount of various types of construction going on there. It's almost too much. But they just, the hill country to the west, it's been fun. And my daughter, of course, is there, and got grandchildren there. And it was Jane that said, "Hey, hello, we have grandchildren. We need to buy a house." I go, "What?"
They do.
Wait a minute. Where'd that come from? But somehow we pulled that off before the real estate prices went through the roof.
It's been about 5 years now you've been down?
Well, we bought the house in the end of 2017 and really moved in the beginning of 2018.
You got in the nationwide housing boom.
Yeah, I mean, it's just down there. It's crazy. It's just crazy. But the temperature is now mid-May. You got to go in mid-May because the hundreds are coming in. And
Well, thank you, Jerry.
Okay.
Very appreciated.
Do you have any questions for us before we wrap up?
well, only again, I think we kind of discussed the timeline, and again, I'd be open to starting as soon as we can reach a mutual decision on that. Because again, I'd like to take Tom. You know that I worked with Tom both in Conway and Northfield, two areas where he was administrator prior to coming to Dalton. Both happened to be my towns. And so, I was happy when he came because, I had a good relationship with Tom. And Northfield and Conway were both run very well, although they were both smaller than Dalton. But beautiful town, I tell you.
Okay, Terry, thank you. We appreciate it.
Okay, we all sat here. Any more questions for me?
Appreciate it. I'd like to take a 5-minute recess if somebody would make a motion to go over our notes and then come back. Hopefully,
Don't move.
Second.
okay, well, All those in favor?
Aye.
5 minutes.
That's 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
I don't know, say that. That's what all my friends,
And if you had there.
absolutely.
Should be.
Where you said,
Yeah.
That's report.
Okay, we're ready to reconvene. Okay, motion to open up.
So move.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right, we both had two great candidates here, I think. Listening to pros and cons. Anyone want to start?
Sure, I'll start.
Okay. Why am I looking at you, Dan? No pressure.
Well, you know, it's important to recognize that we're hiring an interim, and we may not get all the qualities that we'd be looking for in a permanent town manager hire. So I just want to preface with that. That being said, I did find both candidates viable for a number of reasons. You know, with particular strengths and weaknesses, starting with Matthew Castriotta. You know, I found that his experience as a select board member for 5 terms and his in-depth involvement in the town government was definitely impressive. In particular, I believe they didn't have a town administrator for a period of time where the select board is probably pulling a lot more duty than, you know, you'd see in a town with a town administrator or town manager. You know, didn't really see as much direct supervision experience of people, human resources side, but I feel that his time as a teacher in supervising, or rather teaching and leading a group of students, and as well as being a coach for many years, would certainly help him in that, with building relationships and you know, helping people achieve their full potential, which I think is what leadership's all about. Really bringing out the best in people, right? On to Terry Williams. I found an amazing amount of institutional knowledge and in-depth experience with our particular town, which is so unique. It's irreplaceable, that kind of experience. You only get it by finding someone who's done it for that many years. Not only with our town, but in its role in the Department of Revenue, helping, you know, 35 plus towns as well as the special overlay districts with their financial management and coaching and guiding, as well as certifying free cash, among other duties. That type of experience is definitely something I think the town could use right now. I think where there may be some, you know, lack of experience is with in kind of the procurement, and the project management side of things. That being said, for an interim, I'm not sure how much project management we would need. Procurement, though, is an ongoing process and could be a learning curve there. I feel that Matt may have a little more experience in that regard, being on the select board and taking a more active role with that particular aspect of the job. This is a tough call. I'm certainly still thinking about this and like to hear from more of the members to see what they have to say as well.
Tony, do you want to go next?
Sure. I certainly can't deny my bias. I've known Terry for 35 years, 40 years personally and professionally. I've worked with him on the finance committee. I asked him to apply for this position. I trust Terry. I know he has the town's interests at heart. I think he'll be an excellent interim person to get this done. He knows the people, he knows the town, he knows the numbers. I have to say that I related very well with Matt in terms of a fellow teacher. And I think he did I understand his supervisory experience in terms of dealing with people. I think he has excellent select board experience, which would be helpful. I am concerned that he's quite a distance away. That's nearly 2 hours away. So that is a concern. And the reality is he can't start until during the first week in July. Terry could start just about immediately. And we need to have someone on board ASAP. So I know where my vote will lie accordingly.
Okay. John?
Yeah, Tony, you stole my best line. There's not much else I can say after listening to my two colleagues. Two excellent candidates coming from slightly different points of view. Matt, as we're now calling him, has a real structural governmental experience in the town size of Dalton. He has shown real leadership in enlisting and starting many projects in the recreation field and other fields. His experience in supervising, basically, he must have, as Dan said, he must have did it before they embraced the town manager or town administrator form of government. So he's definitely got a good handle on human resources issues, disciplinary issues, which come up all the time, and dealing with problem situations. Which he outlined that he had several issues with the police chief, the fire chief, etc. Now, Terry Williams, homegrown boy, home hero, and he is. He was chairman of the finance committee for 28 years, 24 years. And I worked with him closely. I was a member of the finance committee at once in my younger days. Terry was an inspiration. And he's right, when he took a budget to the town meeting, almost invariably passed intact. Now it's a slightly different kettle of fish, unfortunately. I think the compelling points are different. They're both outstanding candidates, but you have to go with the fact that Terry is immediately available. And that's what we need, because Mr. Hutchinson will be leaving us in probably just a hair over 2 weeks. So we need someone within the next 2 or 3 weeks, if possible. Mr. Castriotta will not be available till second week of July. And also the fact that, you know, he shouldn't bear on it, but the fact that Terry is a homegrown and he knows the town puts him probably at a good starting point ahead of Matt Castriotta. And so with that logic, I would definitely can join my fellow colleagues on the board in supporting the nomination of Terry Williams for the interim manager. Let me make a motion.
No, I just want to say a couple things. Yeah, it is a tough choice. Matt has a lot of experience, especially as a select board. He's been through the ringers like some of us have. But what really sets me apart with Terry, is when we talked about relationships. And I think this is what we really need. He wants to visit with each department head. He knows the department heads. He's got experience with the department heads. And he's got immediately that connection. And I like his plan about having a 5-year plan for the budget. That is a very smart thing. But I also think if we could work this, if Terry had to leave in October, maybe Matt could come in at the end of that. But as right now, I would support Terry for the position at this time. So with that.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we appoint Henry Williams as interim town manager.
Second.
Okay, the motion's been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion?
Just,
Would that be pending the pre-employment physical? And,
Negotiations.
Negotiations. Yeah.
Yes, I'm gonna ask John and Dan to negotiate with them for the salary range, okay? Is that all right?
one thing, I don't know, as Mr. Bartell, chairman of the search committee, did Mr. Castriotta Matt, thank you. Did he show any interest in applying for the full-time town manager job?
Yes, he did.
Okay, thank you.
That was what he applied for, and then when the interim came in, he agreed that he would.
Yeah, he's gonna be available if your school gets going, yeah. So I hope the street committee takes his application with some seriousness. The board seemed to be impressed with him, at least to the point that he should have an opportunity to submit an application. And I think that's all I got to say.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. We need to move it. All those in favor of Terry?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so can you get with Terry, you two, in the next few days and get that worked out so we can start
Yeah, we will.
and get, Tom, you take care of the.
Yeah, part of the physical. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Tom, I'll contact Terry right afterwards, and if you want to contact Matt, that would be good.
Okay.
I'll contact Terry afternoon.
It'll be in the scared vagrant stuff, and Mr. Nat, Castriotta, the sketches, application, very serious, very much.
Okay,
But
need to move on.
given that, it's simple to down to availability, and that's what we want.
The board was sufficiently impressed to encourage him to apply.
Yes.
Absolutely. Thank you. Okay. Public to address the board. This is a time when the public may address the board on any item listed on the meeting agenda or any issue or matter of the town. If you intend to comment on an item listed on the meeting agenda, please do so at this time, as we will not be taking comments from the audience when the item comes on for board discussion. The public address to the board segment will last no longer than 30 minutes. Each individual will be given up to 3 minutes. If you intend on addressing the board, we ask you to do the following. Please raise your hand to be recognized by the board chair. Please step up to the podium and speak into the microphone. Please identify yourself by name, address, or the company/institution you represent. Please address your comments to the board chair. Please make your comments concise and try not to repeat statements made by others. Discussion or debate on any issue may not take place at this time. The chair of the designee may answer questions on procedural matters. Is there anyone that would like to speak on anything before we start? Yes, David. Yeah, please, come on.
Microphone isn't there anymore.
David, why don't
Yes.
you come
Come
up?
up here, sit down, there's no microphones. Good.
Good evening. Appreciate it. I just since your last meeting, I was able to follow up with at least one member of this group, in relation to the proposal to have a meeting, with members of, Perry Patrica's group with the community. My thoughts initially when I heard that, I think it's a great proposal, but I really feel like the board, other boards, should seek and have really good legal counsel prior to that meeting. I feel like if the town boards are not prepared to know what they can argue for versus not argue for, it puts you in a better position to have more leverage with Perry Patrica and his legal team versus going to the meeting and not knowing what's in, I would say, your playbook for the game. So my recommendation to you would be to really have that well thought out and have the opportunity to get that legal counsel prior to inviting him or members of his group here.
Thank you. We appreciate that.
We
Greatly appreciate
We're
that.
vote of confidence.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you.
You're most welcome.
Anyone else? Okay, minutes of April 14th, 2025.
Mr. Chairman, move that we approve it as presented. This is that's
April 14th.
of April 14th, 2024. 25 as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Great. Motion's been made second. Any further discussion or corrections? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, minutes?
I abstain.
Okay.
I was absent.
Okay. Minutes for April 28th, 2025.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the minutes of April 28th, 2025 be approved as presented.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion or correction? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain?
Abstain.
Okay, thank you. Okay, appointments. Mr. Hutchinson.
Yes, first, I would like to, propose the appointment of Anna Connelly as a DPW Summer Laborer. This comes with the recommendation of the DCW Superintendent, who unfortunately is unable to be here tonight. I don't believe Hannah was able to make the be there, unless Hannah's here.
So, Mr. Chairman, I move that we appoint Hannah Connelly as the DPW Summer Laborer pending pre-employment physical and drug screen. Start date
To be determined.
to be determined.
Okay. There's a second.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, Hannah. Okay, Mr. Hutchinson.
This candidate live in Dalton?
I don't know. Also, we have 3 people interested in being on the Beautification Commission. David Warren, Suzanne, Ulmer, and Walter Ulmer.
Mr. Chairman, I move that David Warren, Suzanne Ulmer, and Walter Ulmer be appointed to the Beautification Committee effective immediately to June 30th, 2026.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, David, Susan, and Walter. Appreciate it. Okay, number 9, Town Manager update. Mr. Hutchinson.
Last week, I received bids for reviewing the dust mitigation plan of Berkshire Concrete and developing special permit conditions. The apparent winner is $8,000, which should be funded at Marley Evening's Finance Committee meeting, and that's I can go ahead with awarding the contract and sending the contract out.
Oh, great, thank you.
Following up on the town meeting vote to sell the remaining parcel of the Barton property, I have asked KP Law to settle the question of the APR status of the property. They will work with the Mass Department of Ag Resources to ensure that we are advertising the property correctly when it goes out to bid.
Yeah, that's important.
In another follow-up item from town meeting, I wrote legislators regarding the amendment of the Town Manager Act to delete the town manager residency requirement. We've sent the copies of the votes certified by the town clerk to Representative Davis's Boston office, and they will set that in motion as soon as those are received. Should be this week.
Okay.
Our zoning enforcement officer has acted on a complaint regarding Berkshire Concrete, leaving their entrance gate open past the permitted time. So I expect that problem to be resolved. If the problem continues, residents should let the zoning enforcement officer know. I have sent emails to the Board of Health, Planning Board, Conservation Commission, and Clean Air Coalition asking for members and alternate members of the new Clean Air Committee. I'm sorry I didn't think in time to get it on this evening's agenda, but I assume Tony will be the select board representative in case we can pull a meeting together before June 16, when it will certainly be on the agenda. Electric meters across Eversource's service territory are nearing the end of life and need to be replaced. Starting this summer and continuing through 2027, they will be replacing their current meters with new smart meters that use the latest technology. There is no fee at the time of the meter replacement, and if customers' meters are outside and accessible, no action is required from them. They're sending letters to customers about 90, 60, and 30 days prior to their planned meter replacements, and also use, and are also using other channels such as email, phone, and text messages for customers who have indicated they want to receive information through those channels. The trends in the developing state budget are favorable to Dalton, and I estimate we could receive slightly more than anticipated for new state receipts in our FY 2026 budget. That said, the change is likely to be only a few $1,000s. But at least it's going on.
Yes.
And that's all I have.
Okay, any questions for Ms. Hutchinson?
Just to follow up a couple of things, Bob. Thanks, Tom, for that. I know it's only been 4 days. In terms of the ad hoc committee, I know they'll be notified. I would hope that the health agent would be principal or an alternate as the Conservation Commission agent also.
I've asked them to put the item on their respective boards' agendas.
Okay, all right, so they'll determine that. The other thing is in terms of the invitation, which David mentioned earlier, that is in progress in terms of contacting legal, in terms of asking their input.
Well, what I had as an item was to invite them to come.
Right.
So I'm now placing that on hold pending bringing legal into that.
And then just two more, Tom. We had mentioned in motion to conduct air monitoring along the perimeter of the properties noted.
And I am working with legal on that as well, getting their review.
Okay, and the last one, Tom, you mentioned the zoning enforcement officer in the violation, but we also motioned and voted upon having the zoning enforcement officer and the town planner conduct an evaluation given the current permits.
I have not moved forward with that yet.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
You good?
Yeah, very good.
Okay. Okay, number 10, letter to Berkshire County Concrete. This is the one we wrote last week. I can read it, and if you want to amend it, that's fine. It says, "Dear Mr. Patrica, the Town of Dalton Select Board appreciates your work you've begun to mitigate the dust problem at Lot 105-16 and your Dalton operation. We note, though, that the mitigation work has left about half of the exposed soil on that lot uncovered, and request that you work diligently to cover all the exposed soil on Lot 105-16 as soon as possible."
I appreciate that, Tom. But for the board, I'd like to propose a more direct and assertive letter. This would be to Patrica Industries from the Dalton Select Board regarding nuisance complaints. The Dalton Select Board has been made aware of numerous complaints regarding the dust blowing from your mining operations in Dalton that may adversely affect the enjoyment of residential property in Dalton. Pursuant to Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 111, Sections 122, Section 131C, the Dalton Select Board, as the local authority for the town of Dalton, requires that Patrica Industries continue abatement measures on map 104, Lot 16 of all disturbed land areas as a result of mining operations and to, quote, water daily the disturbed land areas in the process of being abated in order to prevent the dust from blowing onto residential properties. In addition, the Dalton Select Board further directs Patrica Industries to provide weekly reports, both written and visual, as to the abatement measures requested herein, and that abatement of all disturbed land on map 110, map 105, Lot 16, be concluded by July 15th, 2025. Your anticipated cooperation is appreciated. Copy, Governor Healy, Congressman Neal, Senators Mark, Representative Davis, Board of Health, Planning Board, Conservation Commission, and Dalton Clean Air. I've talked to a gravel operator here in Dalton. I've talked to construction supervisors. It's not uncommon for them to water properties to keep the dust in. It's typical. It's typical. There's enough resource there in terms of water to do that. And certainly they should continue on their abatement in terms of loaming or whatever. I don't believe July 15th is out of the ordinary, considering they're almost 50% there. That's my feeling.
Can I read a copy of that, please?
Yeah.
Look at that.
Sure, absolutely. And again, this may have to be voted on next week. I prefer today, but
Well, I think they're the same issues of legal review for
It's an amendment, so.
the
Yeah.
authorities.
yeah.
Well, let's just abstract, the original letter,
It's right here.
yeah, I got you.
That's Tom's.
Okay. We voted on this one.
Yes.
No,
Oh, yes, no?
No, we're gonna vote on
no,
it today.
we have not.
Okay, so there's,
It
you
was,
can't,
it was a different letter, the statement of intent.
Right.
okay, so we can't amend anything. There's nothing to amend.
Oh,
Was it not?
We can.
this is an agenda item, John. This is Tom's letter. And it so happened I went on the day when I saw Tom that he had this letter and I had my letter. And so it was an agenda item and my letter is an amendment.
To this letter,
Well, they coincide. As a matter, Tom wrote his, I wrote mine. It just so happened that when we sat down with each other, that's what, they're writing typical letters. Or the same letter with the same intent, really. I think mine's a little stronger and more direct.
Well, it's much stronger and it assumes the authority that we're asking legal counsel to review now.
That's fine.
So that's, I will put it in the same category as the other motion that you made last time that we're having legal review.
So you'd want counsel to review this letter? Before
Yes.
we vote on it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right. And that would be hopefully by next week, Tom?
Well, it would be the 16th.
June 16th.
Oh, June 16th.
Yeah.
Okay.
so Tuesday.
Time being what it is.
That being said, we do have this perfectly, I think, capable letter of at least
well,
asking for them to complete the mitigation work, very least. But I do appreciate the points of this letter. I just want to make sure that at the end of the day, that we've got the legal authority to order them to do that.
Right.
I agree with you.
I understand the planning board has the legal authority,
Well,
but they may not either. The zoning enforcement officer would have the legal authority. The planning board would have legal authority over the permit and any violations that would come before them.
well, this is a
But in terms of ordering them to do that, I'm not sure.
Well, this is a nuisance complaint, Dan. So last week we spoke about our committee or our board assuming the reins. We do have that authority.
And that's what I'm checking with legal counsel.
Okay. And I sent that. Did everybody get that one?
Yes, I got that.
I sent that in the email. Everybody.
If we get,
If we sent that in turn, if we got that other one, we can send it afterwards.
Yeah, I'm perfectly fine if legal has to review it for everybody's contentment. I still believe it's in our purview to do.
I'm in support of the provisions.
Good.
I just want to make sure that we go about it the right way.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Okay, so,
Now, I have a question. When is legal going to be done reviewing everything that we are presenting? Do you know? Do you have a sense that we get at the time? Or is it just, I mean, conceivably prior to the next meeting would be ideal, right? That's,
Yeah.
that would be wonderful.
Certainly that's,
To have that clarity.
Yeah.
So then we could take certain actions.
Yeah.
Whether it's this action or another one, without second guessing or doubting. That being said, I'd be in support of, certainly of this letter because, in fact, that mitigation plan is something that they've committed to doing, and I think we have every right to request they complete the work for that lot.
So you're saying sign this, but then ask legal for the more substantive
Yeah.
letter?
Yeah, send that after.
I think it's reasonable.
That's fine.
We take at least some action
Yeah.
that we think is within our purview.
no.
I think we could ask them to do daily watering too, though. I mean, I'm not so sure that we can't ask them
well,
to do
this is what I was asked to write. I was asked to write
this to finish the mitigation plan.
and mitigate the half that's not being mitigated now.
Let's do that
All right.
to start.
The soil and storage, but
Yeah, and get the legal
Let's at
opinion.
least do that to start.
That's fine, that's fine.
just separate.
Yeah, it is. It's a step in that.
Okay, we want to put forward a motion to approve this letter and sign it.
Yes.
Yes.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No amendment, no changes,
No.
and you go out as soon as possible.
I would want to make the motion for legal to
Yeah.
use that letter. Yeah. Do we have to do that?
Go ahead.
A motion? Do we have to make a motion? I'll make a motion for legal to review the letter in hand that I proposed as an amendment letter hopefully by July 16th, or for a vote.
Okay, second on that?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, John, sign that one, this is moving, I guess you doesn't have.
Yeah.
Right there.
Any comments to that?
Yeah, right here.
Bobby, I've got a member of the audience asking a question.
Yes, David.
Sir, can I just make a comment to that? It's not gonna affect what you just did, but I think it's information that I like to what you just talked about. Can I say that?
Yes.
No? Okay. So what Tony presented just there were things that can be within the progress that they were supposed to be doing already. 5 acres, clean it up, 5 acres, clean it up. They've got approximately 9 acres that are exposed, so asking them to clean up the entire site is certainly within means. It is. They've opened up 10 acres, 9 acres, and you have every right to say clean up the 9, because they've exposed 9 instead of 5. As far as daily watering, that's a common technique that's totally talked about. It's part of what they should be doing with mitigation procedures anyway. So regardless if they're on the other side of the dump or if they're close to the neighborhood. Just like they're watering their driveway, you have every right to say to them, watering until you can finish.
Okay, we just want to make sure.
The things that Tony brought up, legal counsel should very easily say, yes, yes, yes. So,
Okay, as soon as they do, we'll send. Okay? Okay, number 11, proposed summer schedule, June 16th and 23rd.
I think, didn't we agree that for a meeting on the 16th of
Yeah.
June?
Yep,
And then,
the 23rd.
nothing about the 23rd, we just gonna leave that available.
Yeah, okay.
Or open, and there's always a potential for it in June or the 30th,
Yeah.
but something like give out the, by the, by the angel maneuver.
So we got a
Here.
couple on the back, so
Yeah.
you're saying the 16th of June,
Yep.
July 14th, and
Yep.
August 18th.
Yep.
It's always possible to add
Right.
an interim meeting if you need to add.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I'm sure we will. We usually do. Now, June 23rd was just an option for an extra meeting if needed.
Yeah.
That's totally fine.
Yep.
Do we want to propose alternate dates for July and August in case we have to have one now, or do we want to do that, address that as it
Don't
comes?
tell us that it's needed, because it may change.
In terms of the normal schedule in June,
That was-
this is an off week. We don't normally meet on the, it's usually the second and,
Well, yeah, we
We
got-
got the next, we got the town
Well,
meeting next
then,
well, we
one.
got the town meeting, so we pushed it to the 16th. I say we keep it because this is really a special meeting and the 16th is replacing the 9th. The 23rd is our regular meeting date. We should probably keep it on the calendar.
We can always cancel if we don't
You
have
know,
anything.
sure, we'll have no shortage of things that we need to address. Tom, you won't be here, and your last meeting will be the 16th, but I'd imagine we could benefit by keeping that on the calendar.
Okay,
Just my thoughts.
Good for you. Maybe a good way to break into.
okay. Okay. Motion to approve, triple streets.
Oh,
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay,
Oh, and Tony, can you email me a copy of your letter? Oh, you already did. I think it did. I think it did.
okay, future agenda items, sir, and
I do,
Okay.
again, and then, and this, maybe I could have mentioned this earlier, but the warrant items in terms of monies, I still haven't got, I know I mentioned legal monies based on KP law and also testing of sand based on a local quote. I'm still waiting in terms of air monitoring, although DEP supposedly says that's the responsibility of Patrica Industries. So I don't have that number, but where do we, should that be a warrant item? Or is this too late?
We'll need a number for tomorrow's meeting when we discuss the motions.
Okay, well, you may
And
not,
that's at 10 in the morning.
I don't think I'll have any number for air monitoring, so, I mean, I have no clue whatsoever what that would be. I emailed the gentleman today out of Albany, and he's still working on it.
give us a guess.
I will give a guesstimate then. Okay. And the only other item I'd want to put on the agenda is Conservation Commission. I met with the conservation officer today, and she was an hour and a half meeting, and I just left with my head spinning with so many questions unanswered and irregularities in terms of the conservation permit, which is coming up this spring, and where we would hopefully make changes if need be. And the good news is that we can make changes, and those changes would be at the expense, or with a consultancy at Patrica's expense. I was told that by the conservation.
Absolutely.
So that's a good thing, but I think we're gonna have to start warranting some discussion along those lines, and that would be part of the ad hoc committee too, where we all sat around and exchanged. So for the future, Conservation Commission. Permitting.
Anything else, Tom?
No, that's it.
Anyone else? Okay. Items not anticipated 48 hours before the meeting. Any? Nope. Okay, remarks of the select board. I got one. I would like to thank everybody that was involved, especially Dalton Police, Fire Department, anybody that was involved in the rescue of those two little kids yesterday in the sand pits that were up to their waist in mud. That could have been very, very, very bad scene. And I really like to thank the young man that was with them who went to get help. And I think it was great. I do believe there was 24 people there and they had to put plywood down. Fantastic for everybody. It's just Dalton being Dalton.
Yeah.
And timely reporting also.
Yeah, Channel 13.
All right, anyone else? Okay, let's read some announcements. The town is seeking volunteers, including for its cultural council responsible for reviewing arts and cultural grant proposals and improving projects. If you're interested in being on the Dalton Housing Authority, please call Sue Gregory at 684-2493. For other volunteer opportunities, please visit the town's website. The town of Dalton currently has the following employment opportunities: town manager and DPW motor equipment operator. Please visit the town website or contact the town manager's office for more information. Dalton's official meetings, postings, agendas, and minutes can be viewed at mygovernment.org/01226. The next meeting of the regular select board is scheduled to take place on Monday, June 16th, 2025 at 7 p.m. at the Dalton Senior Center with an option for remote participation.
No preamble time.
No preamble.
Just a quick comment.
Yes.
Didn't we fill the vacancy at the housing authority last month? Last week?
I believe we did. We should take that off.
Okay, good
It's
catch.
Brandon, right?
Yes.
There was, yeah.
Eh,
Okay, with that,
That's a lot of time. It was on there for 2 years.
motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all very much.